What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Grow with Breeze. Today, we're going to be talking about a website building tool called Weebly. Now, Weebly is probably one of the easiest to use website building tools out there today. And in this video, I'm going to be going over everything you're going to need to know to decide if this platform is right for you. Also, for your convenience, we've included our affiliate link in the video description. Let's get started. So on one hand, Weebly's not quite as customizable and flexible as Wix, and it's also not as fancy and sophisticated as Squarespace per se, but I would say between the three of them, it is the easiest one to use. So if you're more of a beginner, if you're not too tech savvy, or if you just don't want to take the time to deal with something that's overly complicated, or maybe for your business needs, you just need a really plain bare bones type of website that just has some general information on your business. Maybe it's more of a brick and mortar thing and you don't need a lot of complex functions. In these situations, Weebly could be a really good option. One of the things that makes Weebly so easy to use is its drag and drop interface. So right here on the left side, we got our toolbar, and then of course the website here on the right. All you need to do to add an element to the website is to drag and drop like this. So we're gonna try something else. Right now you can see my example is some sort of burger place I got from the themes. I will be talking a little bit about themes later, but for right now, let's try changing the background of this banner right here. So what we're gonna do is select this, and it says edit background down here, hit that, and hit replace. It's really that easy. Now you can choose a photo from your computer, or you can just search something up. So we got the background changed, and now we're gonna hit save. And notice how when you select something, it'll really zoom in and focus on that in the center of the screen, so it's easier for you to see what you're actually doing. I really like that about Weebly. It really adds to the user friendliness and really makes it easier for someone who might not be super comfortable doing something like designing a website to create a site that still really looks good. So that's something I really appreciate about Weebly. The learning curve is really short. You can take a look at Weebly for the first time in your life and probably be decently proficient at using it by the end of a day. Super straightforward, not a whole lot to it, which is really unlike a lot of these other web hosting sites like Squarespace, for example, that might not be too hard to use per se, but do still have a little bit of a learning curve and maybe not quite as user-friendly of an interface for beginners to learn on. So the toolbar I showed you in that little demonstration, those were the core elements. Now that's stuff that you could pretty much expect almost anyone designing a website to have to use. Simple buttons, slideshows, background pictures, text, that sort of thing. But what about those other functions? If your website has more specialized needs, if you need different tools, like for example, a table or a social media stream, maybe frequently asked questions or something like that, Weebly actually has a ton of different functions that you wouldn't find under the normal toolbar with the core elements. Now they don't keep all these functions on the main toolbar because not everybody is going to be using them. And if every single function were on that toolbar, it might be a little chaotic and it would take away from the user-friendly feeling of the interface. So for all these different functions, they have a tab called the App Center where you can find a bunch of different, more sophisticated elements for your website. So the App Center is this little tab right here that says Apps. This is what it looks like, as you can see here. These are some of the more popular different elements they have. There are also several different categories: e-commerce, communication, marketing, social, site tools, and features. There are so many different things you can choose from to customize the site to help fit the needs of you, your customers, your audience, whoever's gonna be viewing your website, and it really helps you make it your own. So one thing about the App Center on Weebly that I don't particularly care for is that they don't support apps like MailChimp and Constant Contact that you would use to build an email contact list. The reasoning for this is because they want you to use their internal service called Promote. Now, I'm not saying that Promote is bad, nothing like that. It's just I don't like to be told by a web hosting site what I can and can't use to build an email list. I personally would rather have a choice myself. So if you are planning on building an email list, if that's going to be a more important focus of your website, then I would recommend also looking into sites like WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, all of those to really get a sense of your options. We do have videos on those. And if you do want to learn more about building email lists, definitely check out our other videos on the channel where we go into more depth about apps like MailChimp and Constant Contact. But really, other than that, Weebly does have an extensive app center with lots of different, more sophisticated functions that other web hosting sites like Wix might not support as much. So Weebly has about 70 themes. To give you some references in how this compares to other web hosting sites, this is not quite as many themes as Wix, but at the same time, Weebly's themes are a little bit higher quality, and it's about the same amount of themes as Squarespace, but typically Squarespace's themes are a little bit more sophisticated and just generally more advanced. So it's a good middle ground between the two. If you want a decent amount of flexibility in what kind of theme you have, but don't need anything too unusual, and at the same time want to have a theme that's a little bit higher quality than something like Wix, but don't need it to be overly sophisticated, then Weebly is probably going to fit your needs pretty well. In case you're ever building your website on Weebly and decide you want a different theme, you can go up here to the theme tab, hit that, hit change theme, and you're going to be able to choose between all kinds of different themes. Like I said before, there are about 70 different themes on Weebly, and there are a few different categories as well. So as long as the website you're building isn't something too unusual, then you're most likely going to find something you like here. So Weebly does have a good amount of themes, and of course the interface is super easy to use. But one thing I don't particularly care for when it comes to Weebly's themes is that there are certain things about these themes that aren't very customizable, and I think they should be. For example, the colors. The colors are really limited. You're only allowed to use one color for your theme. So for example, the buttons and the navigation absolutely have to be the same color, which I think is a little unnecessary. And there are lots of other functions on Weebly, especially when it comes to stuff like e-commerce, where it's just not as customizable as something like Squarespace. Now, speaking of e-commerce, Weebly might not be the most customizable web hosting platform out there, but e-commerce on a Weebly website is super easy to use, which is really not that unexpected since they are owned by Square. There are features like gift cards, abandoned shopping cart emails, which is a really big thing if you're selling a physical product or something where somebody might like to do a little bit of window shopping for, and a lot more. And what really sets Weebly apart from other web hosting platforms is that it's super easy to use, really user-friendly. Like I've said before, this is the type of platform where you can go into having no clue what you're doing and be able to learn in a matter of a few days. So in conclusion, what do we think about Weebly? I think that Weebly is really useful for beginners. If you really want to just dive in and get started, if you don't want to have to spend a bunch of time learning sophisticated things about web design, if you want a really straightforward, user-friendly interface where you can just drag and drop things and easily set up your website, then Weebly is going to be a good option. It might not be quite as sophisticated and fancy as Squarespace or as flexible and customizable as Wix, but it is quite a bit easier to use than either of these platforms. Now, it does have some drawbacks. If you want to get a little bit more sophisticated into the more fancy functions and that sort of thing, then you might want to check out Squarespace. And if you want to be able to customize simpler things like the colors that I mentioned before, then Wix might be a better option for you if you want to get really meticulous with those little details. But for a basic website, if you really don't need a whole lot, if your business isn't too complicated as far as your online presence goes, then Weebly is definitely one of the better options. Again, if you like what you saw in the video, definitely check out our affiliate link below. It's going to take you right to Weebly, where you'll be able to see the latest pricing, deals, and promotions. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. But that's it for today, guys. I will see you in the next Grow with Breeze video.